Good morning. I hope you were able to hear that song, Make Them Hear You. If not, I would encourage you to listen to it when you get home and really hear the words and hear the voices. It's very powerful. Welcome to Heritage Universalist Unitarian Church, a place where all are welcome, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our gender, identity, or orientation, our physical limitations, or any of the many things that separate us. I'm Bill Lyon. I'm serving as the worship associate today. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you've been here forever, I'm not talking to any one of you specifically when I say that. We're glad you're here. And if it is your first time or you haven't had a chance to have a tour of this place, we have a greeter from the board. He's standing in the back with the black mask. That used to be a scary thing to say, but it's Mark Buckley, and he would be happy to answer questions from the board or take you on a tour. Ours is a very busy faith community, especially in spring as it's busting out all over. You'll find a lot of opportunities in your order of service and also on the website at huuc.net. Have you noticed that our senior minister, Bill Gupton, is not here today? That's because he's in Dayton, Ohio this morning at the Miami Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We're delighted to have the Reverend Kellie Kelly with us today, who has exchanged pulpits with Bill. This is not her first time here, though, is it? Reverend Kelly, when she was going through the candidating process, Heritage provided what is called a neutral pulpit for the search committee there to observe her preaching. And they liked what they heard. And I did too, and I'm sure you will as well. Reverend Kelly holds both a Master's of Divinity and a Master of Leadership Studies from Meadville Lombard Theological School, where I'm currently attending. But we just missed each other there by about a year, I think it was. She also currently serves on the board of UU Justice Ohio and is dedicated to creating a world where every human being can thrive, no exceptions. Welcome, Kelly. Will you lead us in our call to worship?
You bet. Thank you, Bill. I am honored to share with you words from one of my Meadville Lombard classmates, Reverend Viola Abbott. Toward a place of wholeness. We are brought here today by the fact that Unitarian Universalism has fallen short of the image that was presented to the world and to many of those who embraced this religion. But we are also brought here today by the truth that Unitarian Universalism has shifted course to move toward a place of wholeness, a place that perhaps never existed for us as a denomination. It has been a long and sometimes unforgiving road to today. But we are here today because we are mindful of that past and because we have hope for the future. We want the practice of this faith to be a fulfilling manifestation of its promise. Come, let us worship together.
Thank you, Joanne. I just want you to know that you have witnessed something very special. When I invited Joanne to honor us by lighting the chalice this morning, she replied, "I'd love to. I think it's the one thing I haven't done here at Heritage." And I believe it. And I'm glad you can add this last one to the long list of contributions you've made to this community over the years. And now, let us open our hearts through song. I invite you to stand in body or spirit for hymn 34 in your hymnal, or you can follow along with the words that will appear on the screen here or on Zoom for you. Though I may speak with bravest fire, and then remain standing for our covenant.
And then COVID struck, and it was so difficult to see one another. So I admit that this is now my second favorite part of the service. My first favorite part is being able to see all of you and to connect even above the nose. So I'm excited to share with you one of my favorite stories. Lacey allowed me to do this, which was a big favor, so I very much appreciate it. When the story is over, we are going to sing the children out. And so our children at heart, or anyone who is going to participate in the fun that Lacey has planned, can follow and meet Lacey at the back after the story is over. This story is about the late John Lewis, and it is called Preaching to the Chickens. Not preaching to the choir, preaching to the chickens. And it is written and illustrated by Jabari Asim. Little John Lewis loved the spring. He loved it not only because it was the time when the whole planet came alive, but also because it was the season of the chicks. Winter is too cold to bring them safely into the world, and summer was too hot. Spring was just right. Everyone on the farm had work to do. Work and put your trust in God, John's mama liked to say, and God's gonna take care of his children. Trusting in God was easy. Work was a harder bargain. There was just so much to do on a huge farm in southern Alabama. Every March, John's father hitched the plow to his stubborn old mule. "Giddy up," he'd shout, and together they'd break new ground, carving lines in the earth. In the fall, after months of planting, weeding, and tending, the cotton would be ready for picking. John's mother cooked the family meals from vegetables she grew: collards, tomatoes, sweet potatoes, and other goodies. She cleaned the family's clothes in a big iron pot, stirring them in boiling water and washing them with homemade soap before hanging them from the line to dry. Yes, Lord, plenty of work on a farm. John was excited to be put in charge of the chickens. There were about 60 of them. Rhode Island Reds, strong-winged Bantams, Dominiques with gray stripes as dull as a dishwater and legs as yellow as daisies. John loved to see them flutter and strut and flap their wings. Every day, John got up early and fed them dried corn, just shelled from the cob, then lined their nests with fresh straw. "Cluck, cluck, cluck," the chickens said. John knew that they meant thank you. In a soft voice, John would say to them, "Enjoy this day that God has given us." The chickens, looking straight at him, seemed to understand. As much as John loved spring, he loved church even more. On Sundays, the whole family headed to services. He and his brothers were dressed in slacks and crisp iron shirts, his sisters in neat dresses. Outside the church, friends and relatives greeted each other with big smiles. I wonder what that sounds like. Inside, voices joined in song. John often listened to gospel and country music on the radio. He enjoyed it, but he found his favorite music of all in church. Plain voices praising God without any instruments at all. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. As the worshipers clapped and sang, John felt the Holy Spirit rock in the room. It reminded him of the peace he felt when he roused the chickens from slumber and led them into the light of a brand new day. Like the ministers he heard in church, John wanted to preach, so he gathered his chickens in the yard. John stretched his arms above his flock and let the words pour forth. The chickens nodded and dipped their beaks as if they agreed. They swayed to the rhythm of his voice. John's brothers and sisters couldn't tell one bird from another. John knew every one, and he had a line of verse for each of them. Blessed are the peacemakers, he'd say when they fought over their morning meal. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, he would tell a hen who didn't want to share, for they shall be satisfied. One day, the rolling store man stopped by to make a trade. His truck was packed with flour, sugar, cooking oil, and bolts of cloth in bright colors. I've got plenty of good things, he said to John's mom and dad. I'll give them to you for a healthy hen. Oh no, but John did not want to part with any of his chickens, and he knew they wanted to stay with him. He convinced his parents there were other things to trade, like eggs and seeds. The chickens stayed on the farm, and John learned to speak up for those who couldn't speak for themselves. When the hen called Big Bell fell into the well and got stuck, John was determined to save her. He filled a bucket with breadcrumbs, and when he lowered it down, she climbed in and was pulled to safety. God makes miracles every day, John preached. When you're down, he lifts you up. Sister Big Bell, never knew what I mean. Cluck, 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 Big Bell replied. John knew she meant, say it with me, amen. John even baptized the chicks, bathing them in water from an old syrup can. But little Pullet had stayed in the water too long and appeared to have drowned. John hovered over her and laid her in the sun. After a while, she began to breathe again and soon was up on her feet. He can heal the sick, he declared, and raise them from the dead. Little Pullet, can I get a witness? Peep, 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 said little Pullet. John knew she meant
Amen.
John loved to tell the hens and chicks the good news. While he fed and watched them, he spoke about the value of hard work and patience. With faith and hope, he said a bountiful harvest was sure to come. John's hen house sermons, that's a mouthful. John's hen house sermons became so regular that his brothers and sisters took to calling him preacher. He didn't mind. He knew that someday he'd speak before thousands. He hoped that his words would stir people's souls and move them to action. For now, though, he had his own church right here among the pine trees and rolling hills of southern Alabama. Morning would find him in his usual place, preaching to the chickens. Now let us sing our children and youth out.
Thanks for that story. Amen. Feel free to stand or sit for the next hymn as it pleases you. No judgment. Just be happy. Especially if you're home. You can stand up at home or you can sit and sing here. We're going to do hymn 95. And I would tell you, oh, there is more love somewhere. Hymn number 95. Sherry? seated. There is more love somewhere, and I know where it is. It's right here, right now, in this time and place where we honor one another by sharing our joys and the sorrows of our lives. Some of you emailed candle requests ahead of time. I will read those first. Others wrote them in the book in the back of the sanctuary that's making its way to me. I'll read those next. And if there are others who at home who wish to place them in the chat, you can do so as well in a moment. As each joy or sorrow is read, Reverend Kelly will light a candle. And I invite each of you to hold the expression with tenderness, with a deep breath, a touch to your heart, or a silent prayer. There was the first candle request that came by email, and then perhaps one last candle to represent the joys and the sorrows not expressed here today, and of those individuals lacking the power to express themselves freely. Thank you.
Are we on? Yes, we are. For this song, I'm going to ask for a little help. This is called Draw the Circle Wide. It's pretty easy. I'll sing the refrain through once, and then if you all could join me for the second time, and then I'll sing the verses, and you all join me on the refrain. Okay? Nothing too hard. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we'll stand side by side. Draw the circle wide. Okay, everybody. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we'll stand side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider
One of the many ways that we try to draw the circle wide here at Heritage is through an outreach offering each week. And our offering today will go to the Ukrainian Crisis Relief Fund of Global Giving. And Global Giving is a top-rated charity with a long history of stability, efficiency, and sustainability. Since 2004, they have been responding to disasters and supporting emergency aid and long-term relief programs around the world. While they are based in the United States, they work to shift decision-making power to the crisis-affected communities who best understand where support is most urgently needed. All donations to the Ukraine Crisis Relief Fund will support humanitarian assistance in impacted communities in Ukraine and the surrounding regions where Ukrainian refugees are fleeing. Global Giving's local partners bring relief to the terrified and displaced communities, and they do need continued access to resources for this life-saving work. Our offering will help supply shelter and food and clean water, physical and mental health support, and economic assistance, and a long list of additional resources to help Ukrainians navigate this war. We have all likely seen and heard the news. We know about the devastation, the uncertainty, the loss of homes, and the loss of life. We pass the plate today to offer our communal support and service. Our virtual attendees will find a link in chat if you choose to donate online, and that link is available all this week on our church website homepage at huuc.net. The morning's offering for the Crisis Relief Fund will be gratefully received. We send this offering with a prayer for peace. Thank you.
When I first started attending a Unitarian Universalist church, it was a fellowship out in sunny California. And I was at one of the worst points in my life. That's why I was brave enough to go to church by myself, a new religion and a new congregation. I often felt like maybe I didn't quite fit in there. They seemed to always do the right thing. They seemed to always be on the right side of history. I share a story today with you about not being on the right side of history, about turning away an incredible minister and leader because he was Black. And this story does not take place during the time of the Civil War. It takes place in the 1950s and 60s. I share this story with you because his ministry deserves to live on. I also share it because it is a challenge to us not to repeat the past. It is a challenge to us as a denomination, as individual congregations who like to talk a lot about congregational polity. It's a challenge to us to be more than a denomination of white progressives. It is a challenge to us to become the multi-faith, multiracial circle that we sing about and that we celebrate. Reverend Eugene Sparrow was the first African American graduate of Harvard Divinity School. Now, I didn't go to Harvard Divinity School because I was a little bit intimidated by the chance of not being accepted. So obviously, Reverend Sparrow was an intelligent man who was able to meet the rigors of Unitarian ministry, which I'm sure Bill can talk to you about in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead as he pursues his own fellowshipping through Unitarian Universalist ministry. He didn't start as a Unitarian minister, though. Like all of us, he was a person living his life. And he received the opportunity to learn about Unitarian Universalism because of what we are so proud of. He and his wife were looking for housing, and nobody would rent to a Black couple in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Sparrow had been in the Army during World War II and was going to use the GI Bill to earn his bachelor's degree and do something amazing with his life. And he wanted his wife to be with him, so they traveled to Ann Arbor. And they discovered that the only person who would rent to them was a Unitarian minister, Reverend Ed Redman. And through that business arrangement, Ed and Jean became lifelong friends. And Donna and Jean, Donna being his wife, learned about Unitarianism. At that time, we were not Unitarian Universalists yet. So this is about the Unitarian side of the story. I do give respect to you all, knowing that you were Universalists at this time. He was so excited about the opportunities of this religion that he applied to Harvard Divinity School and obviously graduated. His wife, Donna, was employed as a secretary within the association, so they had connections. They had people pulling for them, rooting for them, supporting them. And yet, no congregation would call him. Originally, when I heard that statement, I thought that they wouldn't call him to be the settled minister, like I am the settled minister at Miami Valley, and Reverend Bill is the settled minister here. It turned out that they weren't even trying to get him that position. They were trying to get him what was seen as a lesser position, being a minister of religious education. Because it turns out that religious education then, and still these days, is seen as less than. It is seen as an opportunity for minorities, and then eventually it became a place of opportunity for women. Even trying to find a youth ministry position, no congregation would take him. Not only did the Unitarian Association support him, they offered to pay his entire salary for the first year. Now, I don't know what money is like here, but at my congregation, if somebody offers to pay somebody's salary for a full year, it would take a lot to turn that down. Now, Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison Reed is one of our experts on African American history within Unitarianism, Universalism, and Unitarian Universalism. He talks about the situation with one congregation in Detroit, and he interviewed the people who were there at the time, trying to find out what happened. Because as meeting minutes can be, it did not discuss any of the conversation, only the outcome. This is what one of the participants in that meeting said. My whole reason for joining the Unitarian Church was a profound belief that it had an umbrella that took in everyone. It didn't discriminate. I was perhaps too idealistic, but I assumed everybody believed the same kinds of things. It seemed to me that the way the congregation reacted that night was totally anti-Unitarian. So when Reverend Sparrow was not able to find a congregation, he found work elsewhere and did some amazing things across the country, including a position working for the mayor of Cincinnati. You see, there's only one time of year to look for a Unitarian ministry position. It's a time period from January to May, maybe? And if you don't get called during that time, that means you're not going to work for the whole next year. And that's a problem for so many new ministers. It encourages them to take ministries that aren't healthy because they'd rather have a job in ministry than no job at all. Unfortunately, that wasn't even available for Reverend Sparrow. And so he worked elsewhere. Luckily, though, Reverend Redman, his friend from Ann Arbor, and others who believed in him and his ministry continued to advocate for him. And he was hired by the Western Conference of Unitarianism. Now, when I heard that, I expected him to be in Colorado, Wyoming. No, in the 1950s and 60s, Chicago was the wild, wild west. Ohio being almost as far out there. He loved this position. He was assigned specifically to support fellowships. I don't know how much fellowship history you all know. When I went to my first fellowship, I just thought that they didn't like the word church. Sometimes that is the case. However, it was also part of a specific movement by Unitarians to plant churches and to do it sometimes Unitarians are a little bit cheap, to do it cheaply, because we promised that you didn't even need a minister. We'd send you packets, we'd send you materials, and you can do it all yourself. And they also targeted colleges, communities that had like-minded people, they hoped. This really excited Reverend Sparrow, though, because he saw it as a way of leveling the playing field of Unitarianism, giving everyone an opportunity to explore their faith, become leaders, and change Unitarianism. There's an article that he wrote in Ebony magazine talking about the changes that he saw in Unitarianism and how he anticipated a day when we might not even need ministers. I selfishly am glad that his vision was off a bit. However, he wasn't able to stay in that position very long because the merger between Unitarians and Universalists occurred, and there were redundancies. Some of us know that redundancy in terms of employment means layoff, and his position was eliminated. He still tried very hard to find a position within Unitarian Universalism. He applied to the UU Service Committee. There were no opportunities. No one was willing to forego dollars and budgets in light of our values. Ultimately, after his wife and he divorced, he found a place that would embrace his ministry. It was not Unitarian Universalism. It was not even another denomination. He was hired as a professor of sociology by Widener University in Pennsylvania. And there he built a career that anyone would be proud of. He helped the students understand that learning about things in a textbook was not enough, and that they needed to get out into the streets, the community, to learn from people who are experiencing what they're reading about. He started an inner city youth program. He got his students out into the community, making a difference. Unfortunately, he was not able to make more of an impact because, like so many who have experienced trauma throughout their lives, he died before turning the age of 60. Widener University appreciated his ministry. They named a behavioral health scholarship after him. And several years after his death, they named a building after him. How is it that a secular community was able to support, witness, and help a ministry that we all over the paper say is ours? At Reverend Sparrow's memorial, his dear friend, his lifelong champion and cheerleader, Reverend Redman, said the following during his eulogy. I was lobbying hard on his behalf, and I still remember some of the callousness and indifference of colleagues who, a decade and a half later, prided themselves on their freedom-writing exploits and their closeness to CORE and Martin Luther King Jr. But when Eugene really needed their support and help, they would only say if he were a Howard Thurman. Then they would go all out for him, for that matter, or a Dr. King, forgetting all the time that even Howard Thurman or Dr. King did not rise to maturity without passing through the pains of learning the arts of ministering and leading. I have heard so many of you say already this afternoon in your testimonials of Eugene's accomplishments as an innovative colleague. You have said what I knew all along. Eugene could have held his own by any test. Let me say that again. You have said what I knew all along. Eugene could have held his own by any test. Why does this matter? Is this an opportunity to simply flog ourselves? If we take away this sermon, this service, and we think that we did badly, and then go back to our lives, then that's really all this is. It's an opportunity to say that we feel bad and do nothing differently. Reverend Sparrow's story is unique and tragic. It is not alone. It is only one of many ministries that we've turned away. I can't tell you how many times people have told me that we don't have more people of color because of this or that. We're not Catholic, and, Latinos want to go to here, and African Americans want to go here. We have had many people of color embrace Unitarianism and Universalism, and we sent them packing. We did it with nice words. We were very kind. We said over and over again that it wasn't racism because we're not racist. We're the good guys. That's what our denomination and our individual congregations have said. We need to challenge that narrative by creating a new one going forward. We can only do that, though, if we're willing to be uncomfortable, if we're willing to make mistakes and say things that we don't know if they're right or wrong. I used to believe that I really didn't have very much racism in me. And then I started learning about all the places that it is in culture and all the ways that I've perpetuated it. I thought growing up as a poor daughter of a single mom waitress that there was no way that I could be racist. And I didn't see all the places of privilege that I had, even though I had challenges and difficulties that others didn't. I didn't understand how I could be a good person and still have racism within me. Many people have questioned the denomination's focus on removing white supremacy from our denomination, saying that white supremacists are those people out there, the KKK, the people who vote a certain way, who wear certain hats. They're not the only problem. We have to be willing to be changed. And so I'm going to leave you with words from an incredible Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Rosemary Bray McNatt. She wrote these words and had them published in 1991. If I do my math, Bill, is that 30 years later, it still rings true. Why are we still talking about inclusivity and diversity when we have done so little to make them real? Why are we still looking pained about the lack of diversity in the denomination? Because diversity, inclusivity is terribly hard, terribly uncomfortable, definitely unsettling, and often quite frustrating. What I know about being inclusive, crossing from culture to culture, learning the language of diversity, is that it's the work of a lifetime. It's hard to accept people who are not like you, who don't talk the way you do, or believe the things you believe, or dress or vote as you do. It's even harder to appreciate them for the things about them that are not like you, to find them interesting and fun, to enjoy the learning that's part of the experience, and to finally acknowledge that you may have to agree to disagree. The truth is this: if there is no justice, there will be no peace. We can read Thoreau and Emerson to one another, quote Rilke and Alice Walker and Howard Thurman, and think good and noble thoughts about ourselves. But if we cannot bring justice into the small circle of our own individual lives, we cannot hope to bring justice to the world. And if we do not bring justice to the world, none of us is safe and none of us will survive. Nothing that Unitarian Universalists need to do is more important than making justice real here, where we are. Hard as diversity is, it is our most important task. I say that diversity makes us whole. We cannot seek to be everything ourselves, yet in community, we can find the vast range of human experience. Through this difference, we find wholeness. We need each other. We save each other. May it be so. May we make it so. I invite you now to rise in body, spirit, and/or voice for our closing hymn, number 318, We Would Be One. words come from Unitarian Universalist minister and theologian, former UUA co-president, Reverend Dr. Sophia Bentoncourt. The good news is that we are in control of what we do with our daily living. If we, each one of us, represent a missing remnant in the fabric of our collective future, then together we can lean into a possibility that we have yet to fully experience in human history, a collective wholeness, an unassailable good. That is the kind of salvation I am here to fight for in the small moments of every single day. I say, amen, Reverend Sophia, amen. Let us fight for this salvation within our walls as much as we fight for it outside. Amen.
You do that so pretty. Smoke coming up. Kevin, did you happen to get a message I sent you?
I did not.
Okay. So we're going to do our closing benediction here. And what I was going to ask you, Kevin, is if after that, since I understand some people who didn't hear the music of the prelude, if we could maybe play the postlude afterward, if that's okay with you, Sherry. Save your fingers. All right. But now, for our closing affirmation, I invite you to head to the sides of the sanctuary. If you're at home, I invite you to stand up or at least lift your hands up as though you're holding hands with us. And this is hand-holding optional as you feel comfortable. If you want to hold hands, hold hands. If you don't, then just hold your hands up as we did in the past. Maybe if we can come this way, we can all be together. Drawing the circle wide, as you can see. The circle's getting wider and wider.
Yes, it is. Awesome.
May the energy of life
May the energy of life
that each of us possesses
that each of us possesses
flow from one to the other.
flow from one to the other.
May it stay with us
May it stay with us
and bring us peace and harmony.
and bring us peace and harmony